What's good, Wizards fans? It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott. Today we have a special guest, Washington Wizards writer and insider, Neil Dalal. We're going to talk about Jordan Poole and recapping the game last night, and also previewing the Hornets in-season tournament game for Friday night. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use code all lowercase locked on NBA for a first deposit match up to $100. And today we have special guest Neil Dalal, Washington Wizards writer and insider. How you feeling today, man?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Can't complain. Definitely been an interesting start to the season. So definitely have a interesting in-season tournament game coming up tomorrow night. So we're feeling pretty good. But my first question for you is just the hot topic right now, Jordan Poole. Just, what are your thoughts on his performance through the first part of the season? And, it looks like last night, I'm not sure if he got benched, but, he played 20 minutes. And, a lot of the bench guys played well, but they played more minutes than Jordan Poole. Kind of been an up and down start for him. Some Shaqtin' Fool moments here and there. What are your thoughts on Jordan Poole, and is there any way you can see him getting back on track to just being that natural scorer that we've seen him be before?
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, he only played 20 minutes, in the win at Charlotte Wednesday night. He's obviously going through, his own growing pains and being in a new role where, he is the guy, the guard that every team is, keying off on. We always used to talk about all the weird, funky defensive coverages that Brad Beal, used to get in his time. Now that's what he's facing night in and night out. And, obviously as fans, you want it all to be there right away and click and make sense and look good. But it's going to be an adjustment period. It might take another, 10, 20 plus games for him to try and find himself in his new role. So certainly, Wes Unseld Jr. was riding the hot hand of the bench yesterday. It would really been odd if he wasn't rolling with the guys who are, plus 20, plus 30, and plus minus. DeLon Wright was really making an impact. So I wouldn't read too much into, Jordan Poole not playing any of the fourth quarter in a win, but it's all going to be an adjustment period. I know it's hard to be patient as fans, but we might get into it later. It's going to have to be some patience because this rebuild is multiple years in the making.
Definitely. And what adjustments do you think you would see with Wes and Jordan Poole? Do you think that he should be playing more lead guard, or would he stay as the two guard with Tyus for the most part?
Yes, obviously they make the acquisition to get Tyus Jones, with Kristaps Porzingis going on to Boston. As of right now, I think they're still going to try and, completely flush this out and completely prove that, okay, maybe this Tyus Jones and, Jordan Poole starting backcourt lineup doesn't work. I don't think they're quite there yet. But very clearly, the more you can stagger Jordan Poole with a DeLon Wright type, a Bilal Coulibaly type, someone that's going to, be that defensive matchup for guards, and letting Poole initiate the offense more, try and see if he can, grow more into that role of being a primary ball handler. I think that's going to be more interesting. For now, they're still going to run through the same lineup. The Wizards aren't going to be one to, make a quick change to the starting lineup, barring injury. So we might not see it yet, but hopefully I would like to see Wes, stagger Tyus and Jordan more, because, it's just finger looking good for opposing offenses some nights going against this too.
Right. Yeah, you could possibly see a Jordan and DeLon backcourt, or a Jordan and Bilal, because Bilal is a good defender. So you could see Bilal at the two at some point. But yeah, Jordan's had some up and down moments for sure. He's had some good moments, but when you see him do the thing like the behind the back and then shoot it against Porzingis and get blocked, or the throw it off the backboard to Kuzma while you're down by 20. So I just think some of those things West has kind of gotten somewhat of a short leash with Jordan Poole, and just defensively, he's struggled. You saw last year with the Warriors too. He struggled defensively too. So, but yeah, I don't blame West at all for the rotation last night. DeLon had a good game. Gallo was cooking. A lot of guys off the Shamet came in and dunked on somebody. So I mean, a lot of the guys off the bench just earned big minutes last night. So I wasn't upset with them not playing Jordan Poole or some of the other guys. And Kuzma had a heck of a night. So of course Kuzma had to be out there. And then he decided not to play Gaff too. So Jordan Poole wasn't the only guy that didn't get, big minutes last night from the starting unit. So, but we have a lot of games to go. So, I would look at game 20 and then look back and really judge, how Jordan Poole is doing. So I see a lot of the fan base, giving Jordan Poole a hard time at this point.
Absolutely. I think even Will Dawkins said on the Junkies, they kind of take 25 game increments and say, okay, what did we accomplish, and did we accomplish what we wanted to, when we started this first 25 game set? So exactly like you said, let's see this first, 20, 25 games come together before we, pass too much judgment.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one dynamic to kind of look at is that this is year one of him being a featured part of an offense. You know what I mean? Like at Golden State, he wasn't, maybe he was a fourth option. He went from a guy who was a six man to now he's the guy. And being young, man, it's an adjustment. I mean, obviously, looking at maturity, he has, matured a little bit, but he has also shown signs of leadership. Coming over,
Absolutely.
Sitting, making that phone call to Bilal Coulibaly when he got drafted, bringing everybody out to LA to work out. He's shown leadership. He's having fun. He has to readjust himself. Coming over from Golden State to being a title contender to a team which is for year one in a rebuild. So to me, he just has to acclimate to the situation. I think in the long run, because I say this all the time on broadcast, man, I think he's got way too much talent to be down for long. I mean, I still see him as an all-star, a future all-star. I think his skill levels just, defensively, I want to see more effort, but I'm not really pushing the panic button yet. He just has to acclimate to where he's at. And so I'm not too concerned with Jordan Poole, man. Because like Ed said, man, with Wes, he did the right thing. He rolled the hot hand. He could have reverted back to Jordan Poole, but it would have messed up the chemistry and the run they were on. So I agree with him riding the hot hand. So, but getting back to Jordan Poole, yeah, I think just give him some time and let him acclimate to being in DC as opposed to being in Golden State. I think he'd be just fine going forward.
Absolutely. Certainly the whole Wizards organization is hoping so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to see him get back to the free throw line. I brought up yesterday the Knicks I know it was preseason, but the Knicks game where he put up 41 and he was living at the free throw line. I mean, he had double-digit free throws, so I think that's something that he can get back to. Not settling for threes. I know that's a part of his game, step back threes and, kind of doing the and one mixtape, bunch of dribbling and stuff like that. But I just want to see him get downhill and get to the basket a little bit more. So, but yeah, he had a great offseason as far as.
That's interesting because, he probably got a lot more calls with the Warriors that he might not necessarily get. The Wizards have never historically in recent years gotten that favorable of a whistle. He was talking to Josh Tiven, the ref, in Philadelphia on Monday, and, Kuz and Tyus are kind of just listening in. But, he's probably like, man, I got all these calls the last 2 years. What's changed? It's like, yeah, the Wizards don't get too much respect from the Zebras. So definitely an interesting point. We'll have to see if he's able to, get that production back up there.
No, that's a good point. Jordan, John Wall, you look at him, he never really got calls even at home too. So I know it's going to be hard. It's a big adjustment for Jordan Poole for sure. But we're going to get to some other topics here. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together. You and I, we get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get 1 year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Ruvatio prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I'll also order antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Make sure you guys check us out tomorrow night or even Sunday night to recap the Wizards game against the Hornets. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow. Make sure you check us out. Recapping the game, or on Sunday night, we're going to recap the game against the Hornets. So make sure you guys check us out. No, you're on mute, Brandon.
See, we were just talking about Shaq and the Fool, so I just want to get that out the way. But now I kind of get back into it. Looking at the roster construction, you have, veterans who are on aspiring deals who are looked at as assets. Kind of in the middle, you have guys who've been in with the organization a couple of years, and they're kind of vets, but they're going into extensions, looking like Daniel Gafford per se. And you have young guys, especially Bilal Coulibaly, Corey Kispert, Deni just got paid. So looking at this roster going forward, being in the rebuild, is everybody on this team except for Bilal tradable?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a long-term, rebuild that's in front of, Will Dawkins, Michael Winger, and company. To a degree, yes, I would say, Kyle Kuzma at this point is, almost right there at, untradeable, because they view him as a guy who's, still on an upward ascent. Obviously a lot of time still needs to pass, but, Jordan Poole is not going anywhere in the near future. One, they're not going to sell low on him in his contract. Two, they still believe in him as well as a 24-year-old player that, you alluded to earlier that just has, a lot of potential in his, bag game. But yeah, Deni Avdija, probably pretty secure, but also, down the line, a very tradable contract. There's still a lot to be known. Bilal's probably the only guy guaranteed, 2-3 years from now to be on this roster. Everybody else could be expendable. But in terms of right now in this season, it's going to be more of the guys on those expiring deals that you mentioned that could potentially get moved. I think the core that they have right now locked up for the next, 3-4 years under contract at least, I would say that's highly unlikely anybody gets traded there. But certainly come February, it's going to be very interesting. And, the Wizards are really going to be looking to try and accumulate all the assets that they can, a la Oklahoma City, where obviously Dawkins and Winger learned under Sam Presti. So this roster will certainly look different the last, 30-plus games of the season, between DeLon Wright, Danilo Gallinari, whose, trade stock is already going back up through this early part of the season. Even a guy like Tyus Jones, if it does not continue to work out between him and Jordan Poole, starting us alongside each other, anybody and everybody would be interested in a, very strong veteran backup point guard come playoff push time. So a lot of people could get moved, but that's still, a few months away.
Yeah, I agree. I think that most people, one way or another, could be tradable assets. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Deni's going to be around for a while, just got his bag. I'll be honest, man. I like the defensive potential of him and Bilal in the same lineup. I think that when Bilal really figures out his offensive game and he slides to the start lineup, those two next to each other, that's going to be a hard defense to score against in the future. And looking at Jordan Poole, like I said, I still think he has all-star potential. And I think, he's not even close to his prime yet. And, you saw what he could do at Golden State. So, like I said before, man, if he can really find who he is in DC and figure it out, acclimate, I think he's good. I think he definitely could be a key piece of the foundation of this team going forward. I already kind of mentioned Daniel Gafford. Mixed results starting. We know what he can do. Lob threat. He can defend the paint, but often struggles against bigger bigs, more athletic bigs. So looking at his contract, first year in an extension, do you see him as maybe he could develop to a starting center, or do you think he's strictly a backup? And looking at his contract, are you okay with that contract for a backup center?
Yeah, his contract, 12.5 million this year, 13.5 million next year, 14.5 almost the year after that. That's kind of what the, non-taxpayers mid-level exception is going for these days, around that 13 million year mark. Typically that's a player who is not necessarily a starter in today's NBA. But, certainly this is going to be another year of, quote unquote development for Daniel Gafford. We'll see if he's able to add anything to his game. He's tried to add in, a little bit of a mid-range jump shot more and more, the past couple years. He hasn't necessarily pulled that out into games too much. But, I think for right now what the Wizards are, which is a rebuilding team, it's a perfectly fine option at, starting center. And, it's a very reasonable, contract price tag that, the previous administration, Tommy Shepard had, given him a few years back. So I think it's, like you said, possibly, can he bulk up anymore? He did pretty admirable job in the first half against, Joel Embiid. A lot of people are going to have trouble with Joel Embiid, but, certainly he needs to be able to stay out of foul trouble so that he can stay on the floor. I think that's kind of the biggest thing for him that we want to see consistently this year. But I think with a lineup, with at least right now with a Tyus Jones and a Jordan Poole, it's very important to have, his effectiveness at rim protection behind them as a second line of defense, because, more often than not, and it's not just a Jordan Poole, Tyus Jones thing, it's probably been something we've seen for the last few seasons. The Wizards, perimeter defense has, left a lot to be wanting for.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Embiid is not an easy cover. And, I'm with you, man. In that first quarter, I was proud of Gaff, man. I mean, he was really holding his own. I was like, okay. Maybe he watches the show. Okay. So looking at Jordan Poole, we've talked a lot about Jordan Poole. In your eyes and in the eyes of the organization, is he viewed as a future star, future superstar, or is he just going to end up being a really, really good starter?
Yeah, I think Will Dawkins and Michael Winger, they always say, we don't want to put any kind of expectations or, ceiling on a player. They want to provide them all of the tools that they can to be successful and go and let them, fly their wings and be all that they can be. So certainly they have the utmost, hope and aspirations that, yes, he can become that all-star player that you've mentioned earlier. And there's no reason for him not to be. If he can figure out, okay, how am I getting played as a one all the time? Okay, my, partner in crime is, not necessarily a guard. That's also a different, relationship for him. He was always used to playing, with a Steph or a Clay, who just naturally are able to take more pressure off of him. Whereas now he's getting the topmost wing defender, every night with length on him. So I think time will tell. Hopefully we see him just continue to seem more comfortable, feel more acclimated into this offense. Obviously the defensive side of the ball is what it is. Like you said earlier, you do want to see a little bit more effort there. Hopefully, West and company can get that out of him. But everybody in the organization is certainly hoping that, they have their next perennial, all NBA type player.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke very highly of Jordan Poole coming over from Golden State, and I think that he could be that guy, like you said, the mold of that franchise guy. Now, I don't know yet if he's the guy to build around, but I definitely believe that he is definitely part of the foundation of what they're trying to build in DC. So we're going to slide. I'm going to give the mic back to my man E, but before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. So you wonder, what is PrizePicks? Well, PrizePicks is actually the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you versus the numbers. Instead of betting thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less 2 to 6 players and then against the star projections and watch the winnings roll in. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at 10.5 combo, 3-point made plus receptions. So I definitely would consider that. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured, which is big. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player can be rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform that does that. So definitely go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use promo code LOCKEDON for the first deposit match up to $100. And again, all you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. And we appreciate you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow or Sunday. We are going to do a live recap of the Wizards versus Hornets game. So definitely tune in for that.
All right. So I did want to ask some questions from our chat last night. A lot of people asked about Johnny Davis. Where do you see Johnny Davis fitting in on this roster at this point, and really in the future as well? Because Landry Shamet, he played well. Of course, Corey Kispert is going to get a bunch of minutes. So that 2-guard spot is just a lot of guys. Jordan Poole, obviously, starting at the 2. So where do you see Johnny Davis at moving forward?
Yeah, and this goes back to there's a lot of rotation quality players, on this Wizards roster. Even a guy like Ryan Rollins, he's maybe more of a 1 guard, but there's a lot of guards vying for minutes, and there's only 48 minutes in the game to go around. When Landry Shamet is playing out of his mind like he was last night, it's going to be tough for Johnny Davis to crack the lineup. We might see a lot more of Johnny, post-trade deadline after, some of these guys get shuffled out. But for right now, it might be, very infrequent minutes for Johnny. I, kind of hopefully doubt that they would send him down to the go-go again, like they did last year. But, his role is, kind of, all right, you have an impression to make on this front office. They're trying to come in with a clean slate for every player that they inherited. Obviously, Johnny gets a lot of grief for where he was picked and, what other potential players could have been picked at that number 10 position last year. That's not necessarily a fault of his, but I'm sure, he feels it and understands it. He was meeting with, friends after the 76ers game on Monday, and they were all telling me, like, keep your head up, have confidence. That's all you can do right now. You just got to hope that he keeps working, playing on his game. He does seem, a little bit better. He had, good finish to the season last year after, pretty bumpy start to get things going. You just hope that he can continue to build on that. It's hard, for a player who's not maybe getting consistent minutes to do that, but you got to put in work during practice, on off days, always trying to get better. He's still very much, not going to be a guy that, is hitting, 5 threes a game or anything like that. But, he can make an impact on rebounding on the glass. The Wizards have always, kind of historically struggled with. He's still a very good defender. It's going to be tough, in these first early months. Like you said, Kispert's going to play 25 plus 30 minutes a game. If Shamet's ahead of Davis on the rotation chart right now, it's going to be very few minutes for him to come by, but he's hope that he's still making progress and development behind the scenes, because come February, I would say at least 1 to 2 guards that are currently in the rotation are going to be traded for assets to contending teams, and that's going to be then his time to shine, to see, okay, what have you worked on, and now with say 15-20 minutes a game, what can you provide at an NBA level?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good assessment there, because if Shamet's playing like that, and I don't think he's going to be here past the deadline if I had to bet on FanDuel, and same thing with DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright played really well, so I think last night was a really, really good showing for these guys to get some value up there. Same thing with Gallo if he ends up getting traded, but yeah, it's just a log jam at that 2-guard spot. You got Poole, you got Kispert, Shamet. So really, Johnny's really he's the 4th guy on the depth chart. He's not a point guard, even though Tommy Shepard said he was a point guard when he drafted him. So, it's I don't look at Brandon's face, but that is what was said at the press conference when he was drafted. But yeah, so I think he can be a good defender. I thought he had a solid summer league, but of course it's way different than regular games. And I was happy to see somewhat of a competitive game, even though we blew him out, because the rotations have been funky anyway, because West has been waving the white flag with 8 minutes to go. This time it was the Hornets who waved the white flag with 8 minutes to go. So I still want to see a game where it's competitive and close to see exactly where he would fit in. But it's kind of telling right now where West is playing him really at the end of the game, whether it's a blowout or not. he's been playing Johnny really at the end of the bench. So, he definitely is a little behind. He had the injury as well, so he did miss the first game of the season. So, we'll see where he ends up, but I think he can bring some value defensively. And, I think he can do that, and he can bring some value playing in transition as well. Just confidence, getting the shots up, not hesitating. That's something I want to see from him coming up this year. But it definitely is going to be difficult for him to get minutes. And I know Wes earlier didn't really commit to him getting a lot of playing time too. As far as the G League, we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully he doesn't end up there. I think Pat Baldwin's going to end up there because I haven't seen him on the bench at all the last couple games.
He's been pretty much been inactive. With a healthy roster, you can only have 13 active players in the game, and he's pretty much been in street clothes for most games this season.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see Johnny do well in DC, but he's got to do himself a favor. When he gets that playing time, he's got to show some consistency. Some nights I look at him play like a couple games ago where he was 5 for 5 and he looked solid. I mean, but then the next game he very easily could be out of the game. So I want to see some level of consistency because we mentioned early on. He wasn't that guy. He's not a guy who's really going to blow past defenders. He's more crafty with his footwork, stuff like that, and that's fine. But I want to see a lot more confidence, and that really goes for the young guys. Period. I think Bilal Coulibaly is kind of the same. We know what he can do defensively. He is a dog defensively. It's just being aggressive, driving the lane. I see a lot of hesitancy with him driving the lane. And we said that a lot about Deni when he was kind of going through the ranks. These first 3 years where. He wasn't really aggressive. Now he is. I mean, Deni offensively is a whole different player. I mean, I love what I see from Deni, man. He looks good. I mean, offensively, he's aggressive. His offensive game is more polished. But sliding back to Johnny real quick, man, is just I want to see those same things with him. Consistency. I want to see more of a dog mentality. Now, defensively, he's on point. And we said it last year that we thought, when we were kind of asking ourselves, what is the future with what's on sale? I said, you know what? I'm very intrigued to see what he can do with a rebuilding roster. If they can find the personnel to implement into his defensive system. And I think they're kind of doing that. I think that Bilal and his defensive capabilities had a lot to do with him being drafted because defensively he's on point. So I just want to see his consistency. I wish Johnny well, but if you get that playing time, you best believe you got to capitalize. So that's where I'm at with Johnny.
Yeah, and just offensively, like what's his calling card? Does he have a go-to move? We did see him airball a floater. So, what's his go-to move? Like you said, Neil, he's not going to come in and hit a bunch of threes. So where is he most comfortable at offensively? I still think he's definitely trying to find his offensive niche in the league, and it looks like it's going to take some time for him to do that too.
Absolutely, which is not always the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you just got to find your footing. I think a lot of people want and hopeful to draw back on, his leap in college from year 1 to year 2 at Wisconsin was night and day. It's probably not going to be the same kind of translation here in the NBA. The competition is, that much crazier. But, if he can make a marginal and, noticeable jump by the end of year 2, I think that's, the main thing that everybody's hoping for.
Yeah. Definitely 100%. Yeah, because he came in as a mid-range shooter, and it's just hard to rely on that mid-range shot when you're not getting a lot of separation like he did back at Wisconsin. But we're going to move on to the game tomorrow night against the Hornets. What are some things you want to see? We don't really say keys to victory anymore after the first couple of games. We just say keys to development. So what are 3 things you're looking forward to tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think number one is, you showed that you can outplay this team. You just beat them, on their home court pretty soundly. Can you do it again? Can you replicate again? Can you not have a letdown? Obviously, this is a different motivation, I will say, that, this team is having this season. They're, not going to be contending and trying to squeak into the play-in tournament and counting every last win that they can get. But they still want to be a competitive team, build those right habits. If you want to do that, you have to take advantage of Terry Rozier being out. You got to go and beat a team that you should be beating, even though, everybody will make this organization this year out to be, kind of be the laughing stock of the league. Take some pride and go take care of business. So I think that's probably the first and foremost thing I'm looking for. I think second is, another game in front of the home crowd for Jordan Poole. Can he, get some excitement going? It's a Friday night in DC, regardless of who the opponent is. There should be some good energy in the air at Capital One Arena. Can Jordan Poole finally have, a really nice breakout performance? Can he drop 30? That's not just important for himself and his own confidence, but, important for just getting DC behind this team again. It's been a handful of years of, pretty dismal, disarray for most part. And, can we get excited about basketball in the, nation's capital again? If Jordan Poole is able to, put on a quote unquote pool party, that's going to do wonders, just for future games this season. I'll say the third thing is, okay, we haven't talked a lot about Deni, but can Deni keep doing what he's been doing so far? I try not to, get too hyped up about, small sample size of games, but, first 7 games, I don't think you could have asked for much more out of Deni. Brandon mentioned it, the aggressiveness with him getting to the rim, still a lot of the same right hand, but if teams aren't taking it away from you, keep doing it until they adjust. He's really stepped up that part of his game. I think the confidence is there. So just continuing to do that, continuing to build this consistency now. He mentioned it himself. It's like, this is good. I'm showing that, okay, I can be a solid level offensive player, not just a, one-sided player on the defensive side of the ball. But now it's all about building that consistency. Can you do that for a 10-game stretch? Can you do that for a 20-game stretch? I think one of the great things about Kyle Kuzma right now is, 7 games in, he's dropped 20 points in every single one of them. That's a level of consistency that, all players really should strive for. And so we'll see with Deni if, he can continue his aggressive nature going into, the next few weeks of this early part of the season.
Yeah, 100%. I think tomorrow night, we're going to look for Deni again being aggressive. Kuz, I don't think anybody can really check Kuz on the Hornets, like PJ Washington, Gordon Hayward, Brandon Miller. All 3 of their forwards really struggled to guard Kuz. Kuz even did the too small gesture at one point. He put up an easy 30 points on the Hornets. So I see him having no problems doing that. I do want to see Jordan Poole have a bounce back game. I don't want him to not play the way he plays, because some of the, I'm not going to say out of control, but some of the freelancing is what makes him him. It's what makes him great. The one-on-one isolation stuff. So I still want him to do that, but at the same time, just in the flow of the game. And, if it's not working sometimes, then just try to do something else. Get the ball up, come off some screens, get your other guys involved.
Golden State Warriors movement, one end of the corner to the other, try and mix something up. It's not going to be your night every night, but I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of try something else. How else can you contribute?
Right, 100%. And then just defense for him. Yes, he's not going to be the greatest defender in the world. Same thing with Corey Kispert. But just show effort, communicate, get back on defense. Those are just the little things. So I'll just keep it simple with that. I'm just looking at Jordan Poole, Kuz, and then the bench step up, get their trade value up, keep playing well. DeLon, keep doing your thing. Shamet, do your thing. And Gallo, keep knocking down those threes.
At this rate, maybe they could get a first-round pick for Gallo. He's playing out of his mind. Highly unlikely, but we'll see.
Yeah, I guess my keys of victory, man. Like I said, I'll be down there tomorrow night, man, with my wife. She is a Charlotte Hornets fan, so I don't want to hear a mess on the way home, man. So my keys of victory is this. I want to see a pool party. Neil already mentioned it, man. I want to see Jordan Poole really show out in front of the home crowd, man. It's the first in-season tournament game for the Washington Wizards. Definitely show out. A Kuz, I'm going to put in that FanDuel bet early on, man, 20 plus, man. So I definitely need him to show out. And Turbo time, man. I want to see him. I want to see him aggressive. I want to see him show out tomorrow night, man. Because I think it's a very, very winnable game. We just blew them out on their home court. Terzier is still out. I think we have a good chance to win this. And if you look going forward, man, the next couple games, man, Brooklyn, we got them. They're without Cam Thomas. So I think that, and I know people gonna get on me, man. I know we're rebuilding, but I think that we realistically could win the next 3. I'm just saying. So I know Wizards Twitter's gonna go off, man, but I try to be an optimist. So that's gonna be my keys to victory.
I want whatever he's sipping on.
Yeah, they could win the in-season tournament at this rate.
Oh, look, hold on, I ain't say all that.
Yeah, no, we got to sit in those Hennessy seats. That's what we got to do.
Oh, that is big bucks. I almost fainted seeing the price of those. 128K.
Yeah, that's insane. It really is. But Neil, we want to thank you for coming on. Shout out to Neil coming on from Hoop District. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter at Neil Dalal 96. Make sure you guys follow Hoop District on Twitter as well, and the Sports Rabbi, and also All Pro Reels. This is Neil's 10th year in the game. He's seen it all. He's seen the John Wall years, Bradley Bill years, Death Row DC. He's seen it all over the past 10 years. So is there anything that you got to plug?
No, I think he did a great job. Certainly Twitter, is still, pretty good for sports these days. And, you'll find a lot of good content out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. We just want to thank you guys for watching and listening and making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Make sure you guys check us out either Friday night or Sunday night. We will be recapping the Washington Wizards versus Hornets game. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell. Hell to the Wizards. Peace.